how's it going, guys? All right. Oh, I'm disheveled. Sorry, I've been doing completely pointless stuff. Anyway, I was sitting there studying these T-Rexes. This is like, I've never been to a museum. Anyway, I've never been to a museum. And I was sitting there looking at these animals, just sitting there staring at these photographic plates and realizing what they are. Pretty intense stuff. I was really, really fascinated. And I decided to study the T-Rex a little bit, really, really frightening ass animal here. Excuse the language. But apparently, I'm thinking it had whiskers. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because a lot of the animals in that time period had wings, or they had feathers, but they wouldn't fly. So it would be a lot of them were predators, and they were predators for larger animals. So the natural tendency would be that most of the animals that were of that form, you have birds, right? Birds have a specific form, they have a beak, and most of them fly. They have a shape, a common shape. They have a common physiological structure. And I noticed that a lot of the T-Rex bones, they're very lightweight. They have the skull doesn't seem to be complete unless they're that's just the way they are, that they've been found. But it seems to be an animal that was intended to be lightweight and extremely muscular. And these other animals, I don't remember all of the particular reptiles, seem to have the same structure. Now, stuff like the brontosaur and whatnot, and the triceratops have a full skull, which is for ramming, and as well as for personal protection. And a lot of the animals that I'm not going to call livestock seem to have like really thick bones, so they would be probably furrier and more down to earth. This particular animal was light boned, or an attempt to anyway. It was like an experiment by nature. And I was noticing like this curvature here in the forearm area, right up to his fingers. The fingers look like bat fingers almost. You know how bats have a little thing coming out. So it's very likely he had a flap of skin, no bone, just a flap of skin. And what I'm thinking this animal would do, he would sit there. He could probably change color, like a lizard. And what he would do is he'd sit there because he has the tall grasses in these areas. You saw this in Jurassic Park, right? The grasses were pretty tall. I mean, who the hell's mowing the lawn back then? And he would sit there and lower his head like a cat. Lower his head straight to the ground, which is why his hands were so small. So he can get his hands really low. And what animals would see is a big mound in the same color as the surrounding area. So it would look like a mound of grass. You'd sit there for hours, just calmly breathing, slowly breathing, and at the same time he's conserving energy because he's on a hunt. He doesn't have to be moving like a cheetah or like a lion. This particular species could sit there, and the recovery time between eating was spent hunting. So he would sit there and lower his head, rest it on the ground, and he's got these electrosensory perception nodes going all the way, which explains the huge size of his brain. That animal does not have a small brain. I'm sorry, I don't care what these people say. And he's just sitting there. He could even fall asleep. And nothing, any movement, any creature around, any movement would immediately wake him up because it would immediately send signals to his brain. So he would sit there just very calmly, barely breathing in almost a hibernation form. And he would sit there, and as soon as something moved and sent enough electrical signals to wake him up, like something big, like it would be like something that they would grow up with, something big, even another T-Rex. He'd sit there and push himself up with his little feet, right? And immediately step up, and we're talking a huge advancement now. And lift alone. All I have to do is do this number with his arms, with the fin, and turn him. Now, when he turned him, this was a land-borne sail. A sail just went right straight across a freaking knoll. So what he'd do is he'd use this in order to actually lift himself up, this huge body of his, and to keep him running at, we're talking 80 miles per hour or more. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because he's using this fin to hold the front of his body up. So he can literally go almost completely downward. And he would sit there and just bolt towards this fantastic prey that would give him enough energy in order to do that again. And the reason this animal had this huge jaw, believe it or not, is not because he looked cool in Jurassic Park. I'm sorry, it's not. With this animal, if you notice, a lot of these dinosaur skeletons are missing the part of the skull. It's not because E.T. came and freaking removed the animal's brains and experimented on them. What was happening is the same electrosensory perception panel on the T-Rex that allows him to detect biological movement also leads him to this favorite target, which is the brains of the animals that he was targeting. So it would, in essence, he would sit there and jump up on this particular prey that he wanted and go straight for the head, right for the pleasure. This would be a pleasure center, basically. This would be a pleasure perception center for this creature. And he would jump up and immediately bite down on the skull, and the animal's done. And he could sit there, and he no longer had to run anymore. He didn't have to expend any energy. He didn't have to do anything. He didn't have to. It's not like the cheetah. You know, the cheetahs have to fight a lot in order to get their prey. This guy was right on what he needed. And nature created the perfect monster. This incredible, what I'm calling it a cat, because that's a cat, man. And he probably had feathers going out the back or everything. What I ended up noticing as well is that a lot of these other species had feathers, which might have not just been for flight or for attempted flight, but rather as electrosensory perception based on electrical movements and wind and breeze and everything moving around them in order, because a lot of them, they were predators. Well, do not, if you get the crazy notion to bring this animal to life, you're dead, because you're just going to die. This is literally the most perfect mammal nature ever created. The only problem, the only flaw this bad boy had was that if he sat there, he's got this big mouth, he's got really fantastically huge eyes in order to be able to see everything. The vision was incredible. The sensory was incredible. The velocity, everything about him was more than most of our modern machines. What was killing this son of a bitch, and excuse my language again, was that if he was sitting there eating and staring at the sun, it became a lens and would bake his head, and he'd die. Do not, under any circumstances, bring that thing to life, because you will regret it, and the whole human race will regret it. Jurassic Park was wrong about most of the stuff about this creature. This creature is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, it would feed on each other as well. So they have no regard for parents. I mean, I found images of a sibling eating a sibling. They have no concept of control or of interaction with each other. So not a real social creature. It's just a hungry creature. Just waits, falls asleep, waits for the perception, jumps at the prey, eats it, and does the same thing again. This is an extremely deadly animal. But everybody makes their mistakes, but I would not recommend making that one, because that is a cat.